We're talking today with Namit Malhotra, who is the CEO of Prime Focus. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Can you explain to us what Prime Focus does?
Prime Focus is a global visual entertainment services company servicing the feature film, broadcast, television commercials, and new media businesses. We provide techno-creative solutions, which is basically technology and creative solutions for any audiovisual content that needs to be made, and we provide it in an integrated fashion across each of these areas of the entertainment business.
And you now have facilities in Vancouver, London, and most recently, I think, Hollywood, which you made some acquisitions in the U.S., correct?
That's right.
So it's interesting that your company has grown at a time when a lot of companies are shrinking. So can you explain sort of how that's taken place?
I think we, for the first 10 years of our start out, when we started in 95, we were a India-centric company, and up to 2005, we sort of stayed within the Indian territory. And 2006, we sort of started to put together our international strategy on how we can actually leverage our learnings of the Indian market across the global marketplace. And we started out by taking up a position in the UK, and then in December of 2007, we made our North American acquisitions. This is all a part of our global plan that we had to sort of connect and integrate the service offerings across the markets, because the language of film and cinema and any audiovisual content remains the same. The technology remains the same. And obviously, in these times when the economic conditions become more difficult, to be able to present a global solution to these global markets where there are financial challenges, I think the opportunity and the interest in what we do becomes only greater.
To some degree, do you think the film industry has been buffered during the downturn?
I'd say I wouldn't sort of agree with that, although the box office tends to be its own indicator from the industry, because what you tend to find is that you see two interesting films that I'd like to name that came in December last year in 2009. One being Avatar, as everybody knows, which is sort of a game changer in the film business worldwide, where 3D and a film like that goes out and creates box office history worldwide, which released on the 18th of December. And there was a film in India called Three Idiots, which again was a game changer, and it changed the entire Bollywood numbers. No film had ever grossed anything close to the numbers that they grossed. So on one hand, you still have, with inadequate financing and structured money available, the number of projects and the number of people that could work on those projects comes under pressure. But the box office obviously is a function of quality of cinema and people's interest. And that, I think, is sort of, if the right project comes along, I think the revenues on that side don't necessarily get impacted, even though the production of content could be, because of the lack of financing upfront. So it's an interesting thing. But obviously, these two films coming in the end of 2009, I think has created a sort of interest back into the revival of the industries in India and in Hollywood, as I see it, where more films are now back in the running, and there is greater optimism in the global financial investors to sort of, try and put some more confidence behind the entertainment business.
Now, you mentioned James Cameron's Avatar, and I think you contributed 10% of the visual effects to that movie. And I think it was 80% of the visual effects you did for another big film, the Twilight Saga, New Moon, correct? Do you think it's necessary for Indian film companies to look westward for expansion, to look to Hollywood? Was that sort of a central part of your own strategy?
So I think, a company like us, which is a sort of a technology and creative solutions company, we believed that we have to be able to service our capabilities and technology with people and systems through a global marketplace. That is, I think, the structure of growth for, I guess, any company out there that is sort of in that space. So in our particular case, I'd say absolutely, that is clearly the way we need to be. We have to sort of take advantage of our positioning in India and now in the rest of the world to provide this global solution rather than operate in these bifurcated zones of how the industries otherwise tend to get divided into. If you think about it, films in India get distributed worldwide. Avatar was also one of the highest grossing films in India, which is very unique to Hollywood films doing business in India. So what we obviously find is that in a globalized world, when films are traveling everywhere, film companies like us also are just tagging behind and going where the filmmakers go.
Was Avatar shown in 3D in India as well?
Yes.
It was?
Yes.
Well, and so that raises another interesting issue because it's sort of a hot topic. What do you think the market potential for 3D is in general? Is it sort of a fad, a flash in the pan, or is it something that you think is going to seep into more and more filmmaking?
I think unlike the past where 3D came more like a fad and it went away, this time around I think the technique that James Cameron obviously used in Avatar, where 3D was more about the experience and not gimmicky and not something that hurted you in terms of your viewing experience. It sort of gripped you more into the story. It showed you like as if there was a live event happening in front of you. And I think that is always more interesting as against things just coming out at you, which is what traditional 3D has always done. So this time around, the technology and the evolution of that and the fact that television sets today in 3D are going to be available and are already available is a clear sign that this is the next level at which audiovisual and content and entertainment is going to be consumed. It's going to be a more involved process, like how the last big revolution was when black and white films moved to color. And we've sort of been watching color films now for more than 50, 60 years. I think this is the next big transition into another domain of how films and other forms of content will be consumed.
And do you think, and it sounds to me as though you think this will take place in the home as well?
Yes.
Yeah, you think so? Anything else that this is sort of the next big trend in or changeover in filmmaking and entertainment. Are there any other effects that you think sort of coming down the pike that will help to transform the industry, or other sorts of large trends that we should be aware of?
I think what's happening more and more is the fact that the creative part of the business sort of stays independent today. Of now in how it gets consumed. You see all the new digital new media devices that you have the cinema halls, you have home theaters, you have big plasma screens, you have Blu-ray, you have VOD, and the new computer systems have 3D on it. You have new digital devices that are talking about where content can be streamed across. So what's obviously happening is that what's changing is the consumer need and access to how they use content and how they sort of switch between various forms of media, and I think that's where the world focuses on in terms of how consumers get this content and how they can actually interactively use it across gaming or movies or mobisodes on the mobile. Or there's going to be so many new forms in which content is going to be streamed in as against the traditional forms in which it was created, and technology is sort of enabling that. So there is talk that technology is the new creativity in our business, that now sort of there's so much more of a bigger role that technology is playing in enabling all of this, while the creative vision of filmmaking continues to remain pretty similar or pretty standardized.
Sure. Are there any limits to that distribution? For instance, do you think people will watch full-length movies on their cell phones or on their iPods?
I think from the way you see, even the new generation on a computer, you see them doing 8 things at one time. I think the mind space is clogged with so much different and so many different ways in which people interact now that it's an absolute position of choice. You could be watching a movie while you're waiting for a bus or in the tube or at the airport, and you could be making calls and looking up your the weather and the map, and it's all coming together as one medium. So I think it's clearly the way things are going to be, and it's going to get more and more interactive, and there's going to be more ways in which that content will be integrated into how people sort of access their daily life, and I think The technology is making that possible, and I think that's the way we think that the future of our business is sort of slated to grow into.
Now, just taking a little bit back into your own background, your bio says you are a compulsive entrepreneur. So what is it that compelled you to start Prime Focus, if you remember back?
I'm actually the third generation in the film business. I think I'm a compulsive entertainment or audiovisual business entrepreneur rather than a regular entrepreneur, because I come from the third generation in the film business. My grandfather was one of the finest cinematographers in his time who shot one of the first color films in India. My father's has been an eminent film producer who's made films. So coming from that kind of a film background, through the evolution of our history, the idea was that when India was starting to make the change in the early 90s, we sort of figured out that technology was not a very big part of our filmmaking, as it was in the West. And we felt there was a unique opportunity for for people like us who know the film industry. If we could learn the technological aspects of what the West had already done, there could be an interesting way to serve our Indian filmmakers and create a platform where the next generation of film and other entertainment forms could be better created and better served. And that sort of set us on the path of providing these services, and that's what got me in at a very early stage of my life. And since then, we've just been building this business on a backward and forward integration model where we, from being just a small editorial house in 95 to now being an end-to-end service provider across markets, across geographies. It's been an interesting journey.
Yes, I'd say, and along that journey, you started, I think, in a garage, right?
Yeah.
Literally. So what's the biggest lesson you've learned over time as an entrepreneur since that time when you began in a garage?
I think the ability to consistently learn and consistently adapt, and the fact that you almost learn to fight harder when you sort of start to lose is sort of some of the key areas of what my learning has been. It's great when things are all working in your favor, but when you have to sort of start out and build something, you have to be able to very quickly adapt and learn and navigate yourself. And just when you know that things are not working, you sort of start pushing it harder the other way. So you sort of know that you can actually, because sometimes your destination is just that much closer to you than you can see it. And I think that has been probably one of my greatest learnings in the last, in my little career.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.